Hi there YouTube, this is First Biker and this is another video based on inclement weather that we may face. So in today's video we'll be covering icy conditions and windy conditions. There are many hazards that us motorcyclists face when riding out in icy conditions. Not only are there slip hazards, but there's also things like cold weather injuries and mechanical failures as a result of cold weather. We will begin on the most obvious hazard, and that will be slipping on the ice. So you may be able to see some patches of ice on the roads. I'll advise that you don't ride over them. If you can miss them, then miss them. But I would take special attention to black ice, as it's harder to spot by road users. So when you're riding around on a cold winter's day, just take extra care when you're out on the roads, as your bike could easily lose traction, resulting in you skidding off the road. It's not only ice that can cause your bike to slip. Grit and salt is put on the road to break down the ice. However, like gravel, the grit can give way underneath your tyres and also cause your bike to slip. Grit when wet will also turn into like a mush. I find it's more slippery than ice. So really look out for these things, because these can really take you out and ruin your day. So now let's move on from slipping on the ice and look at acceptable clothing to wear out when riding in cold elements. Cold injuries should be taken very seriously, but also being cold can also be a distraction from your riding. So let's begin with your head. So your head loses the most body heat, and when you're freezing cold you can lose a lot of concentration, which you require when you're riding a motorcycle, especially in freezing conditions. Most good helmets have air vents, which is great in the summer. You're getting a good air supply to your helmet, cooling your head down. However, in the winter, that cool air will turn into freezing air, turning your helmet into almost like a freezer. So I'd begin with looking at options to close those vents. Most good helmets can, or you can look at ways to insulate your helmet. I find that padding inside the helmet usually does a good job. I would then focus on wearing something like a balaclava or a schnood. I wear a schnood, it's pretty good. It also stops my neck from being exposed, which I find is the worst when you're riding in cold weather, as that can make you really tense up, which will reflect in your riding as you're riding rigid. I would really recommend that you layer up underneath your bike gear, but if that restricts your movement, then I'd recommend wearing something like thermals. So now let's move on to your hands. I'd recommend wearing good winter gloves. You don't want a type that's going to restrict movement when you're twisting the throttle, for example, or you can't squeeze the brakes, or you can't squeeze the clutch in. So make sure that you can break them in like boots, so that they are just about as flexible as summer gloves. Now, a lot of people talk to me about getting heated grips. I haven't got them on my bike. However, from YouTube reviews, I have found that heated grips are very good at warming up the inside of your hands, but not the outside of your hands. Some people might be okay with that, but for them to be really effective, I'd recommend wearing winter gloves with the heated grips, as a lot of summer gloves have vents over your knuckles, which means that cool air is blowing over the top of your hands. But you can also splash some cash and get some heated gloves. So now I'll move on to how cold weather can cause mechanical failures on your bike. If any moisture is trapped inside your bike, for example on your chain, when the moisture freezes, can cause the metal to be brittle, which can cause jamming or even snapping. I advise that you make sure that you clean your bike more often in the winter and ensure that you dry it properly. Also lube up things like your chain, so it creates that protective layer to stop moisture from getting on your chain. That protective layer will also stop things like grit from getting on your chain, which can also cause your chain to rust. If your bike uses a water-cooled system, I would also ensure that you put some antifreeze into the water tank. This should also stop that moisture from building up inside your bike. I'll end this video with a quick message. Know when it's not safe to ride your bike. I understand there's a lot of you that doesn't have that choice, but if you have any other means of transport, I would recommend that you use that instead of putting your bike at risk or yourself at risk. I hope you found this video informative. Hit that like and subscribe button. Thank you for watching. See you next time.